SpongeBob and Patrick were finally together, and to everyone's surprise, their child was a little clam. One day, SpongeBob tied himself up with a rubber band and accidentally bumped into Patrick. That's when they discovered the tiny clam. Soft-hearted SpongeBob brought it home, but the clam cried non-stop the moment it arrived. Even SpongeBob's silly faces couldn't calm it down. Patrick quickly changed the clam's diaper.
How did you know?
And I've been doing it all by myself for almost a year.
Patrick suddenly declared he wanted to be the mom. SpongeBob didn't think he was cut out for it. After all, Patrick was covered in hair from head to toe, clearly the dad. The two of them started taking the clam out, and passersby gave them weird looks. A sponge and a starfish raising a clam? At night, they put the little clam to bed, said goodnight to each other, and went to rest. The next morning, SpongeBob made breakfast. Patrick ate everything and complained about how exhausting it was being a dad. The clam needed a diaper change again, and SpongeBob was swamped. He asked Patrick to help, but Patrick found an excuse to go to work, promising he'd handle chores in the evening. When night came, Patrick was sprawled on the couch watching TV, and the chores remained untouched. Day after day, SpongeBob was pushed to the breaking point. Finally, SpongeBob confronted Patrick about not doing his share of the chores. Patrick reminded him he'd changed one diaper, only to be countered by a towering pile of dirty diapers SpongeBob had saved. Patrick finally realized how little he had contributed and promised to take over all the housework after work. But when he came home late that night, he was tipsy and claimed he had to work overtime, though he was really just watching TV. The two got into a huge argument, and in the middle of the fight, the little clam climbed upstairs. Panicked, they ran after it, but came back empty-handed. Luckily, the clam had learned to fly, gave SpongeBob a goodbye kiss, and flew off. Patrick tried to kiss it too, but got bonked on the head by a coconut. Watching the little clam soar away, SpongeBob felt all the hard work had been worth it.
Let's have another.
Patrick thought he had grown a nose, so he hammered it hard, only to realize it was just a baby tooth. SpongeBob told him that if he put the tooth under his pillow, the tooth fairy would take it and leave money. Patrick, hearing this, went crazy. He smashed all his teeth with a hammer and stuffed them under his pillow. Soon, a thief snuck into Patrick's room, planning to steal his wallet. Just then, Patrick, sleepwalking, punched the thief out. A fluorescent powder box fell onto the thief, waking Patrick up. Patrick mistook the thief for the tooth fairy and got excited. He immediately grabbed him and threw him onto SpongeBob's bed. SpongeBob was excited too, and both of them wanted to become Tooth Fairy's assistants. The thief, seeing how naive they were, decided to take advantage of them. They began sneaking into residents' homes to collect teeth. Their first target was Bubble Bass. The thief had them pull out his teeth while he stole other things.
Only the tooth fairy gets to laugh like that.
Patrick, seeing Bubble Bass's decayed tooth, smashed it with a hammer. Fortunately, Bubble Bass thought he was dreaming. Patrick successfully pulled out the loose tooth. To make up for it, SpongeBob took some money from the thief's bag and placed it next to Bubble Bass. They then moved on to their next target. SpongeBob, struggling, finally pulled out a shark's baby tooth, earning a gold bar as a reward. As they gained more experience, they became more skilled, always using the thief's jewelry as payment. However, their actions attracted the attention of the police. They quickly ran and reached the edge of a cliff. SpongeBob, thinking the tooth fairy could fly, pushed the thief off the cliff. Patrick also threw their car down after them. In the end, the two fools had completely messed things up for the thief. SpongeBob and Squidward were working like crazy making Krabby Patties, piling them so high the kitchen was buried. And eventually, the entire Krusty Krab blew sky high, all for the title of Employee of the Month. It turned out today was the big day to choose the winner. Squidward didn't care about such silly contests, but Mr. Krabs immediately provoked SpongeBob, saying Squidward was catching up to him.
That's right, SpongeBob. I might sneak up on you.
What started as a joke sent SpongeBob into a panic, worried that Squidward might actually win this time. That night, SpongeBob snuck into Squidward's house, planning to slow down his alarm clock, but a creak from the door scared him into hiding in a pillow. Squidward, completely unaware, went to sleep. When SpongeBob reached out from the pillow, he was immediately caught. Squidward rolled his eyes, and SpongeBob gave up pretending and smashed the alarm, only to discover Squidward's closet stuffed with hundreds of alarm clocks. Just as SpongeBob was about to destroy them all, Squidward shouted angrily, "I want to win, and I'll do it even with my tentacles." SpongeBob shot back, "You'll never beat me." The competition escalated completely. Squidward was the first to step outside, and fell straight into a pit. SpongeBob slept soundly, while Squidward finally crawled out and blocked the way to SpongeBob's pineapple house. SpongeBob used a saw to break through the door. The real showdown had begun. No one knew how long they fought. Both were completely exhausted. SpongeBob dragged an anchor. Squidward carried a full-sized ship. In the end, they shook hands in surrender, but the moment they let go, they bolted. The two raced into the Krusty Krab to show off. Squidward brought gifts. SpongeBob dumped money into the cash register. Then they both went wild making Krabby Patties. Eventually, thousands and thousands of Krabby Patties piled up and blew the Krusty Krab apart.
Hey, free Krabby Patty!
Sandy invented seeds that could survive underwater. Everyone received a small tree, except Patrick. He wanted to plant his in his mouth.
Need to chew it, you whittlestick!
Sandy explained that for the trees to grow healthy, they needed to be communicated with. Squidward thought music would work better than talking, but his tree kept losing leaves. Patrick was too lazy to pay attention, only letting his tree watch TV. Mrs. Puff finally had someone to confide in, revealing to her tree that she used to be a robber. Mr. Krabs put his tree in the Krusty Krab as a mascot, telling complaining customers to take their complaints to it. Only SpongeBob genuinely communicated with his tree, even telling it stories to help it sleep. But the tree couldn't stand the constant chatter and told him to be quiet. Excited to see that the tree could talk,
Let go already. You're wriggling my leaves, you filter-feeding freak.
SpongeBob called Sandy, but the tree snatched the phone and scolded him. So SpongeBob decided to take the little tree out for a walk. Back at the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krab's tree argued with customers, scaring them away. Squidward's tree criticized his lack of musical talent. Patrick's tree mocked him for looking like a baby. So Patrick actually put on a baby outfit. Everyone had enough and smashed the trees. But to their surprise, the trees grew legs, and the scattered seeds sprouted even more trees. More and more trees appeared across Bikini Bottom. They buried kids in soil and often barged into residents' homes, tossing things around. The trees caused so much chaos that everyone blamed Sandy and suggested burning them. Sandy came up with an idea. She unveiled a new invention, a machine that could turn trees into smooth, harmless objects. One tree was the first to try and transform into a chair. Seeing this, the other trees jumped into the machine one by one, and each turned into a piece of furniture they liked. Finally, the little trees calmed down, and the chaos came to an end. For now. Do you know what happens when Gary falls in love? Unfortunately, the girl already has a jealous boyfriend, but Gary doesn't care at all. Just as he's ready to fight for love, SpongeBob whisks him away. However, the girl's boyfriend isn't about to let him off the hook later. Back home, Gary misses the girl more than ever. While SpongeBob is asleep, he sneaks out, rushing to the park where they first met, only to find she's not there. Meanwhile, SpongeBob wakes up and realizes Gary is gone. Seeing the portrait of the girl Gary left behind, he panics, thinking Gary has been kidnapped, and rushes into the street. Following the trail of snail slime, he confirms it's Gary's trail and begins to track him. At the same time, Gary finally finds the girl, but obstacles keep getting in his way. He follows her into a pet store, only to be locked up by the owner as if he were a stray snail. The next moment, the girl's boyfriend shows up, turning the store into a complete mess. Gary manages to escape and sees the girl again, but her owner sets sail, with the boyfriend hot on their trail. Seeing the girl's back, Gary snaps. He turns his two snail eyes into springs, launching himself toward her. Gary and the girl are finally together, but now SpongeBob and her owner spot him on the boat. The boyfriend catches up, and just as Gary struggles against him, a much more handsome snail appears. Without hesitation, the girl runs to the new snail, leaving Gary and her boyfriend in the dust. SpongeBob was busy making Krabby Patties when a health inspector barged into the restaurant. Using a scanner, the inspector checked everyone and came to a shocking conclusion. One person was infected with a highly contagious virus. The inspector immediately locked down the entire restaurant, sending everyone into a panic. Squidward, nervously scrubbing himself with a brush, tried to stay clean. Mr. Krabs hid in his office, while Plankton managed to sneak out of a soda bottle using his small size, only to be quickly eliminated by the quarantine robot. To figure out who was infected, Mr. Krabs began checking everyone one by one. Squidward, anxious, accidentally knocked over the pepper shaker, sending a cloud of pepper into SpongeBob's nose, causing him to sneeze. Panic spread throughout the restaurant. To prevent the virus from spreading, SpongeBob volunteered to lock himself in the freezer. From inside the freezer, loud, painful noises were heard, but in reality, SpongeBob was happily skiing and eating an endless supply of ice cream. Seeing this, Patrick decided he wanted some ice cream too. He pretended to be infected, and eventually got locked in the freezer with SpongeBob, where they began an epic ice cream battle. By now, only 4 people were left in the restaurant. Squidward, feeling a slight itch on his skin, was mistakenly thought to be infected with the flu and was sent to the freezer. The tension continued to rise as the 3 remaining survivors feared they might be infected. Mrs. Puff yawned, and Mr. Krabs immediately locked her in the freezer. Pearl was suspected of having the flu after paying back some money and was also sent to the freezer despite her protests. Inside the freezer, the group finally realized that no one was actually infected. The only one who had the virus was Mr. Krabs. They decided to capture the real infected person and charge out of the freezer. Mr. Krabs, terrified, hid under a table only to fall into the sewer. Squidward tried to grab him but fell in as well, both of them covered in filth. Mr. Krabs, unwilling to be caught, struggled to escape, and chaos ensued. More people were covered in dirt as the fight escalated. After a fierce struggle, Mrs. Puff finally tossed Mr. Krabs into the trash bin. The situation quickly spiraled out of control, and the brawl lasted all day. Just then, the health inspector opened the door and saw the chaos, guilt written all over his face. It turned out that he had made a mistake with the test kit the day before. There was never a virus at all, but by then, it was too late. Squidward's tentacles were covered in boils. SpongeBob had become even more hideous. Mrs. Puff was buried under a pile of trash. Patrick caught bronchitis, and Pearl's nose was leaking pus. And Mr. Krabs was the worst. His body was beginning to rot. Terrified, the health inspector ran out of the restaurant, deciding to quarantine the entire Krusty Krab.